having this crazy situation playing out. Leighton Beard, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good morning. Good to be with you.
Nice to be talking with you after a very, very long time. I remember talking to you a couple of years ago. But
Mm.
be that as it may, Leighton, how come the AA hasn't taken over this task? I mean, it would be managed that much more efficiently. And we're talking about the renewal of driver's license, car license, renewal of car licenses.
Look, I think the biggest problem is actually the renewal of driving license cards. And the big issue there, of course, is, and you asked the question, why is the AA not taken over? Well, I mean, we don't possess the eNatus database, and I think that's pretty much at the heart of the issue. We think that the private sector, such as the AA and other organizations and companies, should get more involved. But that would require, obviously, the government's input, and it would require the government to allow us access to certain information and databases, and that doesn't happen. What we think needs to happen is that the system as it currently stands needs to be replaced, and I think that's where the discussion should begin and end.
Okay, correction. We're not talking about renewal of motor car licenses. We're talking about a renewal of your license as a driver. Am I correct?
Look, I think it's both. It's both. But the issues around the renewal of vehicle license discs is not as severe as the issues around the renewal of driving license cards. And that's where we see most of the problems. And that's obviously where we are getting most of the complaints from members and non-members of the AA, who are telling us that they are experiencing severe problems in securing slots for bookings on the online system that's specifically in Gauteng, and then with the slow delivery of services in other provinces as well. So that's probably where the most severe issues lie.
Okay, we also understand there's lots of corrupt activities that is emanating from this situation. We also know that the deadline for renewing of your driver's license is the 31st of August 2021. One of the other issues that has impacted is the COVID-19 restrictions, which obviously, people couldn't go out and do what was necessary. Is the council, are the officials trying to accommodate people by perhaps moving the deadline date, or maybe put in manual systems just to try and get over this deadline nightmare?
So let me just clarify that the deadline is there for people whose licenses expired between the 26th of March and the 30th of December 2020. So if your license expired during that time, you were given a grace period because of issues around COVID to have your license then, I beg your pardon, to have your license renewed by the end of August this year. Obviously, there are still people whose licenses are expiring after that date. So the 1st of January, people would have their licenses and they may be expiring at the end of January and end of February and end of March and so on and so on. So there is a huge backlog, and, COVID is being blamed for this. COVID has exacerbated the problem, but COVID didn't create the problem that exists there. The problem of backlogs and the problem of service delivery has always been an issue, and it's something the AA has been concerned about for very many years. And our view is that the systems that are in place to deal with the current systems that are in place to deal with license renewals are not adequate. The eye testing machines don't work. The fingerprint testing machines don't work. The computers that check for ID documents and that communicate with the nature system are often offline or don't work at all. So these are the problems that we think have been identified, and the government is aware of them, and they've acknowledged these problems. They need to be replaced. You can't revamp these. You can't repair these. The whole system needs to be taken out and replaced. And that's actually where we think the focus needs to be. You can't take a system that is broken and try and put a plaster on it when it actually needs a full-on heart surgery to fix it.
And I suppose the officials will perhaps say that they don't have the budget for it. But of course, this situation is leading to people bribing their way into the front of the queue.
Look, we're aware of issues around bribery and corruption. I think, the government is aware of it, the provincial government is aware of it, the municipalities are aware of it. We've heard of arrests being conducted. So there is movement in that space. But again, I think that the issue is that the system is actually open to corruption because we've got so many systems operating that are offline or that don't work. When you get officials that are in a position to actually work on systems that do work and manipulate those systems, they may be open to corruption. And that's obviously a concern for us. It's, again, a question of we understand that the system doesn't work and we understand that the system is broken. What are we going to do about it? And one of the things that we said was if you're going to have a grace period until the end of August, that gives the government time to actually review the system and to work on it and replace it. You ask about budget. Well, in our view, this is one of those issues where budget is desperately needed and it needs to be spent on fixing the system. We're going to end up in a situation, unfortunately, where people are going to have no alternative but to drive with expired driving license cards and be illegally on the road. And nobody wants that, least of all the motorists who will go to any lengths to get these things renewed. But through no fault of their own, they are going to be on the road illegally. And that is a huge problem. We know what the problem is. We need to fix it. And I think that's where we are at the moment.
Are the officials hearing the plea of the people and just what you at AA are suggesting? Is anybody hearing us? This is the big issue, isn't it?
Yeah, I think people are hearing us. I think, like I said earlier, the government has acknowledged that there's a problem. The provincial government has acknowledged that there's a problem. So it's not that people are unaware or that the authorities are unaware of the situation. I think we're at a stage now where we have to ask ourselves, how do we repair it? What do we do? What is the next step? And that's where we think the alternatives must be considered. The involvement of the private sector, I think, at this stage has now become non-negotiable. We need to start looking at better computer and IT infrastructures, and these are the steps that need to be taken. Why they haven't been taken yet, I can't answer. I don't speak for the government. But I think certainly there is an awareness that a problem exists. It's all a question of what do we do now? How do we take it forward? And I think that question needs to be posed to the authorities.
Okay, in the meantime, Leighton, and I know you, the AA, you're not the government or local government. Obviously, they're not, there's cause of people that need their licenses renewed. They're not going to meet that 31st August deadline, which does mean that they're going to be driving around illegally. What cover do they have? I mean, if they're involved in a car accident, I'm not even sure if their insurance will cover them because their license is expired. So there has to be some form of a safety net. What do you think that net should be? What should it be?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, and that's really a critical and very important question. I don't. And you're very correct. If you're driving with an expired license, there's a very, very big chance that your insurers are going to repudiate any claims you have. As far as we're concerned, I don't have an answer. We can only suggest and advise people to carry on trying and to stand in the queues and to carry on trying to get slots on the online booking system. That's really the best advice we can give. It's not going to work for everybody. We don't know what else to do. We can only suggest to people as well to make a record of all their attempts to get these driving licenses. That may be something that may cover them to a certain extent. Unfortunately, though, if they do get stopped on the side of the road by traffic officials, they may have very little, to refute the fact that their license has expired. And they may end up walking away with fines. It's an incredibly sad situation and one we don't want to see happen. And again, I bring you back to what I said earlier. This system needs to be replaced because at the end of the day, the most important people in this entire equation are the people of the provinces. It's the motorists, and they need to be serviced better. And I wish I could wave a magic wand and say everything is going to be all right. I don't know, and I don't have an answer to your question. It's simply something that I don't want to say grin and bear it. That's unfortunately where we are at the moment.
And let's end the interview on that very negative note. Totally out of your hands, and
yep.
Maybe we need to get one of the officials on the show, but I don't think they're going to shed light on this situation. Very difficult situation indeed. All you're saying is keep trying, and hopefully you might be able to secure a slot. But we will be watching this closely. Thank you indeed for your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Leighton Beard from the AA talking to us about the ridiculous situation, the frustrating situation playing out with the city of Johannesburg and the issue around renewing of driver's licenses. 8:50 exactly, news and views with me, Julie Ali.
A strip of land with over 2 million people blockaded for 13 years. Healthcare is on its knees, food is scarce, and water is inadequate. COVID has wreaked havoc in the lives of the people of Gaza. 53% of the population live below the poverty line. 80% of Gaza relies on external aid to survive. And 20,000 children are now orphans. The future is bleak. Please, don't forget Gaza.